Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast. I'm your host, Nat Nat, and today we are going to go into rock and roll and spirituality. And some of you might be like, how do those two go hand in hand? Yet we're going to hear from Clementine Moss, and she's going to explain how she thought they were something of separation, yet she learned the integration of blending it all together. So Clementine, can you introduce yourself to myself and the listeners and let us know a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much again for having me here. So I'm Clementine. I'm a rock and roll drummer. The project that I make my living with is playing John Bonham's drum parts, Led Zeppelin's drum parts, in a band named Zepperella. I also am a spiritual counselor, and I work in several different modalities, mostly Buddhist based. And I'm also a writer. I wrote a book about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It came out. And also a songwriter, singer, create my own music as well. So I have a lot of ovens in the fire. I'm in San Francisco, and I think that's pretty much me. Yeah.
So before we dive in, would you be willing to do a mindful moment with me so we can ground
Oh,
ourselves?
yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
love it. Mhm.
And for the listeners, as you always hear, safety first. Please don't close your eyes if you're driving or needing your visual, yet you're able to follow the other prompts. So, Clementine, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seating, and if it's safe to do so, gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to be aware of its natural state, allowing it to guide you into your body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up, and that's okay. You're safe to feel, you're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control, release the need to resist, and just be. Be with your breath, drop deeper into your body. Now, there may be some thoughts or to-do lists that have popped up. That's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping deeper into the body, being in the space of presence, in the space of being. Again, more thoughts may have popped up. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating even more space between the awareness and the thoughts, and completely surrendering in the body, being in the presence, in the being. Now coming back into the senses, into this present moment, fully in the body, at your own time and at your own pace. You're going to gently open your eyes while staying with your breath. How is your heart doing?
Hmm. My heart is always good. It always, there's always a longing to open it further, you know. feel like that's a lot of my practice these days, is learning how to be open-hearted in all situations without defense.
Hmm. I call that warrior work. When that
Mm,
nervous system is in fight or flight and wanting to protect, it's allowing that disarmament and softening the body and
mm-hmm,
opening up the heart.
mm-hmm.
It's easier
Yeah.
said than done, though.
It's learning to sit in uncomfortability. And, we've been trained in so many ways to run away from anything that's uncomfortable. And yeah, nothing like meditation to teach you how to just sit in the uncomfortable. Yeah, I think that's the purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has drumming taught you about presence, both in music and in life? And how has that presence become your spiritual practice?
Hmm. Well, meditation and drumming kind of came into my life around the same time. At least, for meditation, it was my focus really started to kind of zero in on it on regular practice around the time that I took up drumming, which was in my late 20s. And I didn't understand, from the time that I took my first drum lesson, I was just called to drumming. I really, every other instrument I'd ever played, it was always a chore to practice. But when I came home, the drums were there. It was like what I wanted to do. When I was in a room where somebody was playing drums, it's like the world kind of fell away, and it was like osmosis. I was felt like I was in this state of constant learning, and a lot of my life made sense when I started playing drums. Like, oh yeah, that is how my mind works. That is how I see space and time. That is, it just made so much sense to me. So drumming was really coming into myself. And as someone who, in my young life had struggled so much and continued to, and still continues to sometimes struggle with a sense of unworthiness. Drumming is about power, especially, any drumming, but in rock and roll drumming, the drum voice is crucial to how people perceive the whole group. So there's a sense of authority that I started to come into that was in me already, that I didn't have to learn, but that I started to understand how to be in. So, you know, coming to ourselves, coming to the truth of who we are and ourselves, I think is a big purpose of what we call spirituality. To find that constant flame within us, that unwavering flame within us. And when I'm behind a drum set, I feel like I couldn't be in a place where I felt more comfortable and more myself. It really feels like I step right into myself, and so in that sense, drumming has been profound in my spiritual life. And now that I'm a spiritual counselor and a shamanic counselor, and I use the drum for healing, when that came into my life, it just light bulbs went on like crazy for me. Like, oh, this is actually something that I'm connected to in even an even deeper way than holding a perfect beat, in a rock show. So, yeah, drums are, I could go on and on about a love song to drumming. And actually, my book, I feel like, in a large part, is a love song to drums. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people may not realize this yet, performing for people, there's a lot of attention, yet there's this energy flow, there's this interaction between the audience and the musicians, the artists. And there's I don't know if you would say that there's like a oneness in that energy field and just being in that collective. Yet what a lot of people don't realize is when you come off the stage, that was like a really big high. Coming off into the everyday mundane, that can feel a little bit splintered for some people. I don't know if you've ever experienced that of being on the highs and being on the lows, and if you had, how did you, collect all those splintered parts to make sure that you were whole in all of the different dynamics of walks of life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have watched that happen to many people, and have, experienced that in people I've played with. And I think that a lot of that is due to the performative self that people put on, right? So we all wear a mask of some kind. And for a lot of performers, there's a mask that they come on in stage. And it is a lot of that protection. When you're performing, you really are, like I said, just as close as you can to your truth. And that can be extremely frightening to do in front of a lot of people. And so I think performers have a way of putting a mask on. And that mask is a mask of invincibility. And then when they get off stage, they're invincible. They're not invincible anymore. And, then in order to keep, like, they grab towards that feeling that they had on stage of invincibility through substances or through situations in their life that maybe aren't as good for them. And I've never really felt that too much. I think part of it is because I'm a drummer, and so I'm kind of naturally protected by a bunch of metal and wood in front of me and the audience. There's something funny that's happened to me recently, which is, I had an experience where, in the middle of the set, I have to take a drum solo, right? Which is highly humiliating for me because it just spotlights for me all of the ways that I'm not a good drummer. And, but I have to do it, and I have to just throw myself into it every night. And, I have to stand up and take a bow, even if I feel like what I did was humiliating, right? I have to pretend like it was okay. And, I had an experience recently where I stood up, after the solo, and the crowd was so effusive. And as they were, clapping, I realized that I didn't feel it. Like I couldn't feel that energy of appreciation coming at me. And I had this little question to myself, is it because I don't feel worthy of it? Because I think that's how I used to feel. Like I'm not worthy of it. And so like they're clapping, but they don't know. Like if they really knew the real me, then they wouldn't be clapping, right? If they really knew how bad I was, they wouldn't be clapping. But when I really examined it this time, I realized it wasn't that. It was that the me that would absorb appreciation, she just wasn't there. And what was there instead was a feeling that it was one appreciation, that we were in one appreciation, that I had been just a tool used to create a moment of appreciation. And so it wasn't about Clem. It was about the appreciation that we were together in that room celebrating something happening, right? And that was really a profound shift in my thinking, and also a realization, wow, I really have let go of a lot of that ego-ness, and it'll never be gone, of course. We always carry our ego with us. And I thought, I was doing a little thought experiment afterwards, and I said, what if nobody clapped afterwards when I felt that, and I kind of went down that road and realized, yeah, of course I have, ego, but it was something different this time. And I think it was just, that oneness that you're talking about, that back and forth. The drum sound goes, like I hit the drum and it goes out. That sound goes into the audience. It goes through everybody's molecules, and it combines everybody, and their appreciation comes back into the next hit. And it's like this circular thing. So I'm a big fan of rock shows, of music shows, of people being in one room, forgetting all of the pettiness, and just being in that one moment together. Yeah.
I want to ask, in your younger years, were did you befriend anger? Did drumming allow you to feel that emotion more openly, or there wasn't any relationship with anger?
Yeah, in my younger years, especially in the band that I toured with really extensively, the band was really heavy rock, and I think that that band was two other women, and we toured. One year we did like over 300 shows that year, so it was like every night in a
What?
different city, just the three of us living in a car, right, or
Wow.
living in a van. And I think that in that band, it was helpful to be fueled by anger,
Mhm.
by fueled by frustration, by the frustration of the day, by the frustration of being in this, like, very masculine world, and maybe feeling like it was just this constant proving that we deserved to be there. That anger could come into it, and it suited the music. And so I feel like, that was helpful for that period. And then at a certain point, it shifted for me, and I realized I just had more stamina if I played from joy. And I had more stamina when I connected to that kind of infinite battery of peacefulness within me. Then I felt like I could play forever. And anger is a depletion, and joy is uh, it keeps going. So that was a big lesson at a certain point early in my career.
Yeah, because a lot of people may not realize how much energy it takes for drumming and how
Mhm.
much drumming holds the foundation of the musical, group and the instrument and keeping people in a certain tempo and, like, the bass and other instruments do and the vocalist also, yet that drumming is like the heartbeat and just really keeping the tempo and the pace of the audience. So, physically it's an endurance, but also listening to the collective, in a spiritual way of what is the beat that needs to be carried here so that we can kind of be in a trance of just being one right now, not in our worries and our to-do lists, that it's a real meditative state. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it's funny because there's a saying in music, which is that you can have a mediocre band, and if you have a great drummer, it elevates the band. If you have a great band but a mediocre drummer, the band will always be mediocre, right? Because we have a subtle understanding of rhythm. Every single person does, because we basically are a drum, right? Our heart is a drum. So we have a real intuitive sense of when something feels right.
Mhm,
And, for a drummer, it's all about the space between the hits, right? That we can feel like people aren't settled. We can feel like people are drifting. A drummer is drifting in their awareness. We can tell all these subtle things about rhythm. And so we definitely know when it's right. And that takes a kind of focus and not focus, just like in meditation, where we're focusing very small in a certain way, and yet we're also in that wider awareness. And, we can focus on the breath very closely, and then we can focus on the bigger breathing that's happening. So it's kind of the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I wanna ask you now, you said that, you're a spiritual leader and you counsel people. With the divine and human love, how do you distinguish the 2 and how do they collide with each other?
Well, what my outlook is that all things are made of love. That's my outlook. That the divine, whatever we want to call it, consciousness, God, um, I I see it as a flow of love. That at the base of all things is a vibration of love, um, and that's not love the emotion. That's love in perfect benevolence, perfect peacefulness, perfect ease, perfect, um, uh, I want to say adoration. I don't know. That kind of brings in emotions. It's kind of hard to talk about love as an energy, right? That's what I see it as, an
Mhm.
energy of that. Um, the way that we see human love, I think, is an emotion, and an emotion is tied to an ego's preferences. So, I think true love is, and I'm not discounting that. I think we learn a lot of lessons in our emotions and our relationships, our emotional relationships. I think, that's one of the best things about being human is that we have those things and that we go through all of those lessons. But there are a lot of lessons in them. And, I like to think of loving in that, we were talking about being open hearted in a completely undefended way. And undefended means without fear. And so jealousy is fear, anger is fear, um, control is fear. And so if we have no fear, then we're allowed to love unconditionally, freely, and boundaried too, because, loving another means we love ourselves in that way as well. And we treat ourselves with the respect of boundary without any drama around it. Yeah.
And I just want to highlight for some of the listeners because, when they hear fear, then some people want to do a little bit of spiritual bypassing and, evilizing the human experience, that nervous system that gets ignited with fear. And the reason why we will feel fear is because we don't feel the safety. And until we start programming the unknown, the uncertainty, and having trust within, there is a lot of igniting of those protective emotions of, like you said, frustration and insecurity. It's again, these are the bodyguards of the fear that doesn't feel safe to show the vulnerability, that I feel unsafe, that I feel that I'm not able to be open in my rawness, in my openness, in my naked truth, that it won't be harmed or hurt. And sometimes, yeah, it's on the outside, yet a lot of times it's our own little inner critic that chastise us. Like you
Mhm.
gave us a beautiful example of when drumming and the applauding, and at one point it'd be like, oh, self-loathing, it's not good enough, it's not at the perfect way, where releasing that, it's like, oh, I'm safe to be right here in this moment, not with the doing or the perfectionist. So there's that safety that allows the fear to be diminished. I think sometimes just how I'm trying to create language around this, like, it's always like love or fear, where it's like, how do we integrate the two and how do we better understand what fear really is so that we can meet it with compassion and we can meet it with the love, not, "Oh, I got to destroy it and get rid of it and berate it." It's like, well, it's still part of that humanness. If we didn't have fear, our nervous system wouldn't be able to function properly. It would know, don't, go into the fire, or it wouldn't give us the cues that we need to have. Yet I think
Well,
sometimes go ahead.
yeah. Oh, no, no, I super appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, I think that you're completely right that, and that I think that the fear, like finding fear within ourselves, is really related to that journey within ourselves to realize we are love, we are safe, we are, that to have the compassion and the self love to realize that there is nothing here that can harm me. There's nothing that can harm that infinite flame, the infinite light within us. So really, it's not even so much about battling fear. It's about saying, "Oh, fear is here. Let me fall deeper into that knowing of myself as that infinite flame, as that infinite light, and realize that in that light, fear burns up. There's nothing here that can harm me, right?"
Mhm.
So I think that you're completely right in that, that it really is about leaning into, the truth of us. I love to just stop and think, what if I am exactly perfect right now? What if I don't need to be better? What if I don't need to be healed? What if everything that I'm looking for is right here, right now. And it's almost as if a trap door falls out from underneath me and I feel like I'm floating in air. Like it feels so discombobulating to think like, oh my gosh, what if I don't need to do anything except to be here in this light? And for a while, I was really kind of freaked out by it. I asked a spiritual counselor. I said, I feel like I've lost all my ambition, right? And for us, especially for me as an American, and I'm sure there's a level of this in Canada too. It's like the idea that like ambition is what it's like what our forward movement, right? And it's always about ambition, about being better, about like getting somewhere else. And one day I realized I just didn't have that anymore. And I realized how much I had been propelled through my life towards these random things that, often were nebulous, this feeling that I keep having to go forward. And when that was gone, I felt like it was a very strange feeling. And this counselor said to me, it's not that you've removed ambition, it's that you've removed the goalposts. And that now what you're doing is you're following your enthusiasm. You're following where your heart wants to go, where your enthusiasm is telling you to go. And you no longer have this random set of criteria that you're moving towards. You're moving in every moment with the intention of your heart. And I think that's a great way to look at it, and to let go of the fear of not being good enough, not being enough. Well, of course I'm enough. My heart is telling me this is what excites me. This is what lights me up. This is what makes me want to move into the world. Even if it's doing my taxes, even if it's something mundane, I can go with enthusiasm because, oh my God, it's going to feel so good to get that done. And I have the ability to pay my taxes and how grateful I am. And all those things that go along with it. So I'm not saying we have to drop, our jobs and all of the things that we're required to do to, keep existing in this world. I'm just saying that there's a way to move without battle, with enthusiasm rather than ambition, I guess. And that's all dependent on us letting go of the fear of not being worthy. Realize I'm worthy. I'm here. My heart has these longings for a way to live, and it's okay to do that.
So to go into that tenderness, how was it holding the parts of you that were hard to hold at one point? How did you
Wow.
create and cultivate that space for yourself? And I have a twofold question. Did you find that it was easier to hold space for others with that before you came to yourself and held space for yourself with those hard places? Or you recognize I have to hold it for myself first before I can give it to others?
Yeah. Well, I'll say that, a big shift in me came when I was doing a practice, a Tibetan meditation where, I'm guided to sit under the tree with, a wise mentor, right? And my image was of the Buddha. And I went and I was sitting under the tree and I was required to give the Buddha something I was carrying, something heavy that I no longer wanted to carry. And then I would lay it at their feet, and then I would feel this unconditional love coming back from the Buddha. And like I started to do the meditation, and then I woke up and the meditation was over. And I was like, oh, it's been a while since I fell asleep during a meditation. Okay. I kind of blacked out and woke up when it was done. Right. And so I said, okay, next day I'm just going to sit down and do this meditation again. Same thing. Like, same thing. Just like my brain just would not go there. And I thought, can I not feel unconditional love coming towards me? And so I sat and did an exploration like, can I feel myself unconditionally loved? And no, I could not. There was always this piece in me that felt there was something I needed to be different in order to be loved. And I even brought in my mother, who's an amazing mom, and I know loves me unconditionally. And even when I brought her into the picture, I felt like I needed to be somebody else in order for her to love me that way. And when I realized that I couldn't feel that I was worthy of divine love, um, unconditional love, that shifted everything. Then I started to really move into those places that felt, why do I feel like I'm bad? Why do I feel like I'm not worthy? And when that stuff happened, when I started to do those explorations, and it was very painful. I mean, I remember sitting, in shame. I remember shame was this big thing I kept dealing with. It's just layers and bedrocks of shame within me. I couldn't figure out where it came from, but it just was this energy within me. And I remember sitting for an hour in meditation, and my body was convulsing with the agony of sitting in this heavy feeling. But after I went through all of that, and I became so much lighter, and I let go of that, and I started to feel myself worthy. Then what opened up for me was a deep compassion for myself. Like, oh my gosh, for all these years I've been carrying these things around with me and functioning okay, but good grief, and then I remember driving down the road and seeing people on the sidewalk and thinking, oh my God, if I've been dealing with this stuff, imagine how much all of these people are dealing with as they're on the street. And I just started I went through this period where I was just so emotional about the compassion I was feeling for the struggles that other people have.
Mhm.
And so it was after that that I started to study, work to help other people. But, and that came very easily, and it wasn't like I was looking for it; it just came into my life, and it was kind of like once those things opened up, then I felt like my life changed track a little bit, and being able to help other people. Yeah.
If your past self could talk to you right now, what would she say?
Oh my gosh, she would be so relieved that I've let go of that negative for the most part. I mean, of course, it still rises up. We have patterns, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, boy, she really suffered. Sometimes I look at my 20-year-old self and I just, people say, oh, to be 20 again or whatever. I'm like, oh my God. All I see then is just that gripping, like, just struggle, with myself, just not understanding why I hated myself so much, really, in so many ways. How difficult that was, and I have to look at her, and I'm like, God, you did a lot for having all of that package, And I also think, gosh, I had such a loving family, and even with that, I had all of these things. So I sometimes I think we're kind of born into this life to let go of some of these things. Yeah.
And now what would your future self tell you about fear?
Well, I'm going to use the words of a spiritual teacher that I really like a lot, who says that, fear is just denial of the divine, right? It's denial of that vibration of love on which everything is based. It's a belief that we're not divine. Like if God is everything, then we are God. All things are God. Everything is of that thing. Everything is of that vibration. There's nothing outside of it. You can't put anything outside of it. And fear, it comes up in those moments where, for some reason I think Clem is the one person who's outside of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that othering that can happen, putting yourself outside and not seeing that you're part of the collective, that can be a lot of work, having that journey, coming back into yourself, into divine, into the love. And, because it's like you said, we're patterns and humans just create patterns, it's so easy to bounce back up out of it. Yet, the reason why we create practices is always the reminder of this isn't the come back home. You're welcome to come back home. It's always there for you. It's not like you got kicked out. It's that you left home and just come back home.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this.
And over time, I think what happens is, we start to things at the beginning of our spiritual lives. I think we're constantly trying to get in there, right? Trying to get there. And then as time goes on, something flips, and when we're there a lot of the time, and then when we bounce out, it's like this interest, like, whoa, like I was really like, look at all that anger that came out in traffic, like where the heck, wow, I thought that was over. Nope, that's still there. Like, let's take a look at that, So I remember the first time I went to a 10-day meditation retreat, the teacher, S.N. Goenka, said, one day you're going to appreciate your pain. And I thought, all right, I'm getting out right now. This is so stupid. Like, how could you ever appreciate pain? But now I'm kind of there. Like, now when something happens within me, even if it's painful, I'm like, whoa, well, okay, more work to be done. There's always more work to be done. Yeah.
So I'm mindful of time. Can you let the listeners know where they can find you, your book, and also whatever offerings you have?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. I'm at clemthegreat.com. That is my website. And my book is there and on Amazon. It's From Bonham to Buddha and Back is the name of it. I read it as well, so it's an Audible book as well. And I have new music that's been coming out. I have a new record that's going to be out on May 30th that I'm really excited about. And I just put out some new music as well. Zepperella is always traveling all over the place. So, but everything is at clemthegreat.com. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd like you to tap into your heart and listen to what your heart's saying and to send out an intention to the listener that is listening right now.
Well, I'd love if even for a minute today, every person just stopped and recognized that part of themselves that is okay, that is good, that is worthy, that never seems to change. It has no need to be different in any way, that everything is okay now. It's almost like a little, one of those little lamp lighters who used to walk through a town saying, all is well, all is well. Like, where's the little lamplighter within you that says, all is well?
Thank you so much, Clem. This has been, I felt like balm on the heart, very soothing conversation, very open, and I appreciate your vulnerability of, sometimes people hear spirituality or hear about rock and roll or hear about these different identities, and they think that there's perfection, where you allowed us all to see what the journey looks like, the messiness, the polished parts, really understand what surrender and acceptance is and what the journey looks like, that it's just a continuation all the time. So thank you so much for the light that you're bringing in the world and the vibration in music that you're uplifting people. So thank you so much for all that you bring forth.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the really wonderful conversation and your really insightful questions. I so appreciate it.
Please remember to be kind to yourself.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit. It's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.